thing, all of this kind of farming, is you got to do it a bunch of times. You're never going to reach a point where you can think that you actually have this farming thing down pat. I talked to 80-year-old farmers and they said, "Oh, Will, I'm just starting to learn how to farm." They've been farming for 60 years. So once you get cocky and think you got it, one little bug will come through and wipe you out. One rain or storm will wipe you out. A whole bunch of things will wipe you out. So this farming stuff keeps you very grounded. It'll keep you from getting really cocky because, you know, it's the hardest thing to do. This is harder than playing any sport. Being a good farmer is probably harder than being a professional athlete. You know, I really mean that. There are not a whole lot of really good farmers. It is an art form. Europeans get it because they put farmers on a pedestal, right up there with doctors and so forth. And that's important because our food is so important to us that we need to value those farmers that know how to do this, that are going to do it year after year after year, that are going to be there when hail is beating them on, when they got arthritis, when they got whatever. They're going to hang in there and do this because it becomes, they're passionate about it. It's just like Jackie said, once she jumped up on that tractor, that was it. She's working at the university, doing all this cool stuff, being an academic, but once she jumped up on that, once she touched that soil and jumped up on that tractor, she said, what have I been missing in my life? So this is a passion-driven art form.
You know, well, one thing about that is I bet this generation, like past generation, is probably a wonderful generation, or, you know, time to be in that, because I think a lot about, like I spent time on my grandparents' farm, and I don't know how he felt it, but that was the big era of, you know, going for chemicals, going for pesticides, going for fertilizer, and I think he probably knew it wasn't necessarily the best way. I mean, he went from horses and manure, you know, he was, and I think now it's kind of like, you know, it's good.
Yeah.
There's nothing bad in it. It's all good.
Like I said, when I travel the country
like
today, I find in these audiences, I bet 75% of the people are under 40 years old. And when I speak at places like Yale, I spoke at Yale this past year. I went out with students afterwards and I said, "Hey, what are you guys going to do?" There were a bunch of seniors, and I said, "What are you guys going to do?" You know, because everybody goes to Harvard and Yale, and, you know, to glean their employees. Those are the first, Princeton, those are the first schools that law firms and medical schools go after. And these kids said they're not going into corporate America, they're not going to grad school right away. They want to do what I'm doing. So that made me feel really good.
Nice.
I said, "Well, what are your parents going to say? They're going to spend $100,000 on your education." And he said, "Well, they just have to, you know, wait a while." No, kids
They'll have to adjust to it.
But it is wonderful that we're in the era. And also, one of the things that pleases me most is that 10 years ago, I would come to places and there would be no people of color in these crowds. And today, we have people of color joining the Good Food Revolution. People and immigrants, people who have been persecuted around growing good food. In slavery, in countries where they lost their land and had their land taken away, like Somali Bantus and so forth. So this is a revolution. People are starting to understand that food is going to save us. And food is going to save our communities. And we can't build sustainable communities without a sustainable food system. More people understand that today. So it's not a fad that's happening right now. This is here to stay. So glad you all want to be a part of it.